It's now 4 a.m. and yesterday night I made the decision to change my alarm to 3:30 so that I get going quite early in the morning, and now it's time for some breakfast, peanut butter with apples, and then I'm off. Alright, it's 4:20, perfect timing, and now I'm off. It's still a little bit fresh, so I'm wearing my jacket just to don't get a cold on the first day, and I'm starting the trek now, and yeah, then the only thing left to do is biking. Although I don't think that you can see me, I just have to get it out. I'm already so happy to start this tour. The conditions are great. It's a clear sky. I'm riding under the stars. Yeah, I really hope this is gonna be a great adventure and that I'm at my destination in 6 days with lots to talk about and a lot to tell my family. And now it's time to get some kilometers done. It's now about 5 in the morning and the sun is starting to come out. So as you just saw, that looks beautiful, and I'm just happy. It's just great to be able to do stuff like this. Also, I saw a shooting star just 5 minutes after starting, so if that isn't a good sign, I don't know what is. Another hour has passed. It's now 6:15 a.m. and as you can see, I'm feeling the first sun rays on my face, so that's great. And I think it's time for a breakfast apple before I continue the tour. So little break just to enjoy the start of the day, and of course then I'm off again. Alright, sunscreen is applied, jacket is taken off, and now it's time to go on. Although my geography knowledge is really bad, even I can navigate my route regarding the sun, because as long as it's in my back, I'm on the right track, at least in the morning. And in the evening I'm just gonna head into the sunset, and that's the trek, or that's the direction. Since my water bottles are empty and here's a cemetery, I'm gonna fill them up real quick and then I'm gonna continue my tour. The last few kilometers, or even like 1.5 hours, have been feeling really tough. I'm starting to feel a little bit of the exhaustion, probably from the lack of sleep, and also the route at the moment is just completely flat, so no inclines or declines, and just biking straight ahead, which is really boring or like mentally exhausting. So yeah, I'm pushing through, and I think I'm soon gonna take a bigger break, or bigger, like my first proper break. But I hope to get at least 100 kilometers in before that, so should be something like another hour. And so far I didn't check how many kilometers I've been riding for, because I don't want to be too disappointed when it's not that much. But at the 5-hour mark I'm gonna check to see if I'm in the time frame or too slow. But now it's time for an apple first. So first proper break, and I just checked, I've been cycling for 117 kilometers, so that's perfectly in the time frame. And now it's time for some caffeine, and then I'm just gonna look for some dried fruits and maybe some nuts in the supermarket. And that's all for the break, and then I'm gonna continue since 1/3 is done. First half of the break is done. Now I'm looking for some nuts and some dried fruits to keep me going while I'm riding as well, and then I'm off again. That little break felt really good, and now it's even getting awarded with a proper tailwind, so easier to just pace through and get some kilometers done. And I'm really motivated again after the really boring part. It's definitely more interesting now, and also I feel great since I now know that I'm perfectly in time. The last half an hour was basically all uphill, so an incline for like 10 kilometers. But one thing that really changed while growing up is that I quite enjoy the uphill parts, which definitely wasn't the case when I was younger. So it wasn't too bad, had some fun, and now it's all downhill again. When I said it would be downhill from here, I didn't think it would get this steep, because I just rode down a 22% decline, which almost was technical to drive. So that was fun, but a little bit scary on the racing bike with all my luggage on the back. So maybe I've got the first problem, because I was just riding through the city with like 30 kilometers an hour when suddenly the whole handlebar bag fell off. And yeah, now I have to check if it's broken or if it just like wiggled away. But that doesn't seem to look too good. So as you can see here, that thing just broke off, so I don't think I have any chance of fixing it, so I will have to improvise something. Alright, so I may have an idea. First of all, sorry mom, because that bag was hers and my father broke the first one, so we had to buy a new one. But I'm gonna buy you a new one as well, so I hope you're not too mad. But since I need all this stuff, I can just leave the bag here. So my idea at the moment is to take my travel mattress and use this cord to somehow attach it under my triathlon handlebars. And that way I have these straps free, so I can put this bag under them. And that's the plan for now. Let's see if that works. I'm not 100% convinced, but I unscrewed the attachment for the handlebar bag, and now I just tied up a small little package and attached that to my handlebars. So this way I can definitely steer without any problems, and I hope that it at least will stay like that until I'm at my destination tonight, and maybe I'll figure something out and can improve that, but I think that's pretty good, and at the moment I don't have any other idea how to continue, so that's the way it will be, and now I'll continue on. So the last half an hour was really stressful, because I've been driving through Göttingen, I think, which seems to be a bigger city, and that was really annoying, because obviously there were a lot of cars and I had to be careful, and I'm not 100% convinced with my improvisation at the moment, but I only have one other idea how to attach it, and that's above the triathlon handlebars and not below that. So that way, at least when it gets loose, it doesn't fall in front of my front wheel, which is probably smart, so I might change that at the next break, but I'm not sure yet, so we'll see how it goes. Unfortunately, I have to stop again because I have no water left at all, and yeah, I need to buy something because it's getting really, really hot now that it's 1 p.m. The water bottles are filled up again, and the people in the Asia Imbiss were so nice to even let me clean my face a little bit. Now it's time for the third layer of sunscreen, and then I'm off again, hopefully without another break in the next 2 hours. Also, as a last status update, I'm currently at 180 kilometers and it's 1 p.m, so now it's time to continue. I really hope that I'm leaving the bigger cities soon, because it's so exhausting to ride through them. Everywhere there are just traffic lights and you're basically just standing around, not being able to keep up the pace and always having to stop, so that's really annoying, but I hope that this will be over soon. I'm in Stuttgart now, and you learn something new every day, because I didn't even know that Stuttgart has its own vineyard. So here to the right you can see that there are a lot of vineyards, so that's interesting. As a vegan, I really do love all animals, but a bee just flew into my helmet and stung me right here in my temple, which really wasn't necessary now that I'm almost 2/3 done with the tour. But it doesn't hurt too bad yet, so I'm just gonna continue driving, and yeah, luckily I'm not allergic. After 9.5 hours, the 200 kilometers are done. So my goal for today, or what I have in mind, is going for something like 333, just because it's a nice number. So I'm almost done with 2/3 of the tour today. Up until now I really felt great so far, but slowly but surely it's really getting exhausting. And since I don't have my handlebar backpack anymore, I can't just snack on the go, but I would have to take a break for that. And I don't really want to lose too much time at the moment because I'm still in the city and it's really hot. So I'll just try to keep on pushing. And as soon as I leave Stuttgart, I might take a small break just to eat something in the shade and regenerate a little bit before I'm finishing off the last 100 kilometers or so. I finally left Stuttgart, or like the city surrounding it, and since it's been 5 hours since my last break, it was about time for another one. And that's when I spotted a strawberry stand at the side of the road. So I bought some strawberries, fresh fruits to re-energize, and now I'm taking a break, and I will let my friend where I'm staying the night at know at what time I'll roundabout be arriving at her place. Alright, the break is over and I'm off again. So I'm almost exactly at 100 kilometers left, and I hope that will go by quickly because I'm getting quite tired, I have to admit that. Now it's time to refill my bottles as well. I've spotted a church down there, so hopefully they have some water, and then I think that was the last bigger pause because I really want to get to today's destination and call it a day. Let's see how that will go. It's now 4 p.m. and I feel like now the really hard part has started because the sun is burning down. It's incredibly hot and I still have quite a lot of distance to cover, so not easy right now to just keep on pushing. But since there's not much I can do about that, or nothing I can do instead, I just have to keep on going. But it's really hard. I'm really happy that this is the longest distance I will cover in one day because it's too long. I feel like 280 is definitely enough, and I don't have to break the 300 anymore. I think that's enough if I do it today. If you're wondering why I don't talk about the distance I covered so far too much, that's because I don't check it that often. So anytime I check it, I'll let you guys know. So I'm just short of 240 kilometers, and now I know why it's so exhausting, because the temperature is 37 degrees and I'm out here riding my bike. That's just... I don't have any words for this. Unfortunately, my knee pain is coming back as well, and that's why I had to walk for a few meters now. And now I'm gonna fill up my bottles, and it's really hard at the moment. Hopefully this will be one of the last updates for today, because I'm only like 35 kilometers away from this day's destination, and also here's finally some shade. It's been so hot. Oh, I can't wait to be done with today. Well, sometimes you just have to wait whether you like it or not. Well, it could have been so easy. I just wanted to take the ship or the ferry over the Rhine, but unfortunately the ferry doesn't work at the moment, I guess. So I'll have to figure out a route to get over the Rhine, but I think there are 2 bridges nearby, so I'll just have to choose which one's the smartest. And yeah, can't change that. So the first time I would have needed data on this trip, I don't have any connection at all, so that doesn't work. Because now I don't know which way is the faster one to cross the Rhine, so I'll have to figure that out. But fortunately, the Garmin navigation system has some offline maps and I recognize the triangle shape that I'm riding tomorrow. So I now know where I have to go, and now I just have to figure out which crossing or which bridge is the faster one. After 290 kilometers, this is definitely the worst part of the whole tour yet. That's so annoying, and I think it's really stupid as well, but I don't want to waste any more time because I'm so tired. Oh, that's so unnecessary and exhausting. But I'll finish this tour today, and tomorrow will be a new day, so everything should be fine. Why can't there be a bridge? Oh! I'm just gonna carry my fucking bike through the fucking bushes to get to the fucking goal tonight. Excuse my little breakdown. This was just really tough. To be this close to the finish line and then getting told to like not only having to detour like 10 kilometers, but also riding 3 kilometers under the worst street conditions ever. This was by far the worst kilometers I've ever ridden on my bike. All time worst. And then it didn't even pay off. I have to go the complete distance back, and that's really tough, but yeah, but I'll have to keep going. And I'm really looking forward to meeting my friends, so I'm not gonna waste any more time, but just finish this fucking first day. By the way, I've crossed 300 kilometers now, so another milestone done. And now I'm using Google Maps to navigate to my friend's place, and I'm going to risk it. I'm using bike navigation just because it's 13 kilometers shorter than using the car navigation, so the roads can't be worse than what I've driven today anyway, so that doesn't matter. I'm so exhausted. It's just about 20 kilometers left. I could fall asleep right here, just on the road. I'm really tired. I'm just rolling down the last few kilometers before I arrive at my friend's place, and not gonna lie, I'm close to vomiting from exhaustion. I'm so tired. That was way harder than I thought it would be, especially because of all the problems during the last few hours. I'm gonna, I don't know, I just want to go to bed. Quick little update before I fall into my coma. When I finally arrived, Kelly greeted me with a shower and some delicious food, so that was perfect, and I'm so thankful to be able to stay here. And yeah, we had a great talk as well, because we didn't see each other for like 2 years, and now it's about time to go to bed.
Good morning everyone. After being awake quite often during the night, I still have to say I feel so much better than yesterday evening. The dinner was great and the bed was perfect, exactly what I needed. So after breakfast I'm gonna tell you about today's plan.
It's 7:30 now and I'm off. It's a little bit later than expected, but I had to wait quite a long time for Google Maps to finish downloading the offline maps. And yeah, today I'm just gonna do a chill day until Verdun. That's roughly about 270 kilometers, and I'll see if I arrive there or if I'll just camp somewhere earlier. I don't need any challenges at all today, so let's go. Also, I already made some minor changes this morning because I improved the setup for the mattress. Now it's between my aero handlebars, so that's definitely more safe, and also my front light is now unblocked by the mattress because that was a little bit of a problem yesterday night. So the first half hour is done, and I have to say it doesn't hurt as bad as I thought it would. But unfortunately my knee and my Achilles tendon, left knee, right Achilles tendon, do hurt a little bit. And there's pain in places where I'm not going into any further detail. But all in all, I feel quite good. And since my original route wouldn't have included the stay at my friend's place, I'm now currently on my way back on the track, and maybe I can even save some kilometers by that, because at the moment I'm navigating by map only. And yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I should maybe save a few kilometers, which would be great. But like I said, there won't be any records today. I'm just gonna finish it relaxed and try to enjoy the scenery and the adventure. First little unplanned break because my toolbox just came off, but that's easy to fix, so not a problem at all. Not perfect, but I think it should do the job. I had to take another shortcut with a gravel road, but at least I'm now back on track, and now the official part of the tour can begin. I'm still feeling quite good, and I'm just gonna push through the day. I wanted to get my first water refill just now, but unfortunately the church behind me seems to be closed and doesn't even have a water supply. So I guess I'll have to continue, but I'll definitely need to keep track of my water because I think I didn't drink enough yesterday, so that was probably one of the reasons why it was so hard. I just asked for 2 bottles of water in French and it worked, so now the adventure begins because now I'm in a foreign country and luckily my French is bad, but at least I think everyone can understand me, or at least what I'm trying to say. So now I'm eating a banana real quick and then I'll continue. I have to say I feel like I made more meters of altitude today than yesterday in total. So there are a lot of inclines and declines, but I'd rather ride up 100 mountains or even more than to drive through bigger cities like yesterday. That was so much more annoying. And like I said, I even enjoy riding uphill quite a lot, so that's not too bad. I really have to give a shout out to Komoot at this point, because the streets or the routed plan, it's great. It's really lovely to get to see all those small villages. Since I'm close to the first bigger village, which will be the last for quite some time, I've decided to take a small little break, and I've been on the bike for 3 hours already, so I think it's about time to eat something, maybe drink a Coke and continue on. I found a small patisserie, which is exactly what I'm looking for, so now it's time for the first break. Although I quite dread it, I think this pain au chocolat will make it easier to check the distance for the first time. So firstly how far I've come already, and secondly how far I still have to go. Alright, that's not too bad. 188 kilometers are still left and I've been cycling for 54 kilometers. So that works. I have to say I'm really proud because I just asked for a supermarket in French as well, and I even found it with their instructions. So now I'm gonna buy myself some fruits and some Coke, and then I'm off again because I still have quite a lot of distance to cover. So the break is over. I'm just finishing up my apple, and as you can see I'm now listening to an audiobook because I just want to get some kilometers done. And since my smartphone just shut off because of the heat, I'll just put it in my bag and probably won't be filming for the next few kilometers, but yeah, I just need to get some distance done. After cycling for about 50 to 60 kilometers, I decided it was time for a little break, so I bought myself some snacks. And since a few inclines were coming up, I thought it would be a great idea to listen to some podcasts so I have some distraction while climbing the hills, but unfortunately that was when my phone started to make problems. Alright, so much for listening to an audiobook. My phone keeps restarting itself, so I'm just gonna shut it off completely and let it maybe cool off or something, because I don't want to break my new phone. So yeah, that's that. So the plan was to just start a podcast, put the phone back in my pocket and then go for the inclines, but unfortunately, basically while I was putting the phone away, the podcast stopped. So I wondered if I accidentally paused it or maybe turned down the phone because it was shut down when I took it back out of the pocket, and turned it on again, started the podcast again, put the phone back in my pocket, and exactly the same thing happened again. So
Then I was kind of curious to see what's going on, and while I was looking at my phone, the battery percentage went from 70% to 0% in like 2 seconds, and that was when I knew something was wrong with the phone and I might not be able to use it anymore for the rest of the trip. And unfortunately, that turned out to be true. Here's my recollection of the things that happened. Unfortunately, not in France, but just here out of my room, but at least I can tell you all the things that happened during my ride. So after continuing the climbs without any distraction, after around 70 to 80 kilometers, I met another cyclist who was standing at the side of the road and picking apples from a tree, and we got into talking, and it turned out he was a Swiss middle distance triathlete, and since we more or less had the same goal for the day, we decided to just ride with each other, so it's not that boring for either of us. And we did this for around 50 kilometers until he stopped in Metz and I had to continue on until Verdun, which was where I stayed for the night.
My phone is basically dead. I'm in Verdun. My tent is built up and I'll continue this journey without any technology, so can't change that.
A really cool thing about my stay in Verdun was that I met a man who was traveling by hitchhiking, and although he didn't speak any English and my French isn't too good, we talked for the whole evening and just communicated with signs and my French and his understanding of my English and French, and it was really cool meeting someone and just talking in French again, so I can practice that as well. Unfortunately, the night at the campground didn't turn out to be that great, because although I don't know why, at 2 AM in the morning construction work started to go on, which was basically located directly at my head, and that was really loud and annoying and kept me awake for half of the night. But nevertheless, regarding the tent, I slept quite good, and I would even say it was basically a little bit comfortable. That was why waking up was quite hard, but still, my alarm went off at 5:45.
Quick little morning update. Apparently my phone is broken because it doesn't charge anymore. It's still at 0%, so I don't know how long I can talk, but the plan for today is to go to Paris and maybe even past it. But I have to say it's really hard right now. The night was okay, now it's time for breakfast and then I'm off again.
Unfortunately, shortly after filming this video, my nose started bleeding again, which was the second time in total, because in the evening after arriving at the campground, my nose started bleeding for the first time, and you will see that this is something that will just continue on for the next few days.
First little break after 2 hours for the breakfast. I bought a pain au chocolat and a small baguette.
After filling up my bottles again, I continued for another 10 to 20 kilometers, which was when I arrived in Châlons-en-Champagne, where I had my first major breakdown of the tour and I was completely exhausted.
Quick update, I'm having quite a lot at the moment. I'm at 85 kilometers and there's still 170 to go. This is gonna be my lunch and then I'm hopefully gonna continue. Well, that's not good. My nose started bleeding after the break and yeah, I don't feel good. I really don't feel good at the moment.
I was sitting in front of a supermarket, my nose started bleeding again. I had only done 80 to 90 kilometers, so not that far for that day. And I was completely exhausted. I guess part of because I didn't drink enough and also the heat and just the exhaustion of the first 2 days coming all together, which was why I had to take a longer break there and also waited for my nose to stop bleeding. But since I knew quitting wasn't an option, I decided to continue on, and luckily after only like 20 minutes driving, I arrived at the river channel and checked my navigational system to see that I could just continue on the biking track next to the river channel for 30 kilometers at least, which was such a relief, and I literally cried tears of joy just to be able to not having to climb during the heat, just being able to make some kilometers. So all in all, that was a great motivational boost. While cycling next to the river in the shade of the trees, I thought about maybe checking if this wasn't maybe flowing into Paris, and I did, and the river did as well. So obviously my thought was that I could just skip all the other inclines that the Ploemeur track would have led me down and continue on the bike track next to the river. That's also why I asked some people sitting next to the river or on their houseboats if they knew if that bike track would just continue on to Paris as well, just as the river will do. And out of the 3 people I asked, all of them said, yeah, sure, totally, you can just continue on to Paris. Which is why I just continued cycling on the track.
In the effort to try to cover a lot of distance a little bit quicker, I stayed on a bike route next to a river, but unfortunately it ends here and now I'm off quite a lot of the track, and yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna try to cross back on the track and make it to Paris tonight. That's the goal for the day.
After about 150 kilometers of total distance of the day, I arrived at a city where the bike track just stopped. And it was basically the most furthest point away of my original track that could have been possible. So there I sat in Dormont at 4 PM without any idea what I was going to do. Luckily, I found some kids who I asked if they knew the way to Paris. I think they have been quite confused by that question, but nevertheless, they told me that if I continued on a bigger street, I would probably end up in Paris, and that was my goal for the day. So I just started cycling next to a lot of cars, which was really, really exhausting.
After what felt like an eternity, I'm finally back on the track now. It's 7 p.m. I'm at 213 kilometers and it's still 54 kilometers until Paris. But I think since Paris is probably my best bet for stocking up on food and water and maybe eating a nice dinner, I think I'm just gonna try to push through and eat my last banana and my Oreos now and just try to get until Paris, and then I'll just figure out somewhere to sleep. I decided to call it a day for today and treat myself to a pizza, and then I'm gonna look for a place to sleep. Maybe I'll just pass through Paris. At least I got the caffeine to do that, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about tonight. Also, I decided to probably take half a day off tomorrow and visit Paris for a while, and then just see how far I can get before the day's over and finish it off in the 2 remaining days.
After another 5 to 10 kilometers of cycling, I found a spot next to the road which was harder to see from the street than the rest of the spots I've seen so far. So I decided to build up my camp there and call it a day.
I decided to build up my tent right here, and I have to admit I'm a little bit nervous because I've never slept alone in a tent in the complete wilderness, so I'm just gonna stay here for the night.
Also, while building up my camp, I had my third nosebleed of the day, so I was starting to get a little bit worried and also quite annoyed because every time my nose started bleeding, I had to stop what I was doing, wait until that's over, and continue to do what I was doing before.
I have to say, that doesn't look too bad.
I have to admit I was a little bit nervous before I went to sleep, and that's why I put my pocket knife under my pillow just to have some reassurance that I would be safe. But to my surprise, I slept like a baby. It was the best night I had so far on the trip, so I woke up at 6 a.m. in the morning again and felt great and ready to take on day 4.
Good morning to day 4. I have to say the night was actually quite okay. I'm still really tired and exhausted, but now it's time to break camp and go to Paris for breakfast and then push through as far as possible so that I can arrive in Mont Saint-Michel tomorrow. Also, I'm over the halfway point now. I'm gonna change my shirt today because it isn't nice anymore to drive in this one, and since I only have 2 shirts with me, I had to wait a little bit until I changed it, but I think it's time today.
At 7 a.m. I was sitting on the bike again, found a place for breakfast, and then I continued on to Paris. Since my original plan of cycling 3 days until I arrive in Paris, then take 1 day off, and then do the rest in 2 days, fell through because I had no place to stay in Paris, I decided to take some time to visit Paris, but then continue on and just see how far I can get on the day. I finally realized that I arrived in Paris after passing the Place de la Bastille, and then it was time for some sightseeing. So I crossed off the Eiffel Tower, almost got hit by a car at the Champs-Élysées, and then had crepes at the L'Arc de Triomphe, where unfortunately my nose started bleeding again. And that was a really funny experience because I think it was a proper expensive restaurant, and I was just sitting there sweaty in my bike clothes with a tissue pressed to my nose so the bleeding doesn't fall on my crepes. So I think they probably were really confused and maybe a little bit weirded out by me, but I had to continue anyway. Which is why after about 2 hours of cycling through Paris, I decided it was time to leave and went on past the Place of Versailles, which was really nice as well. And then I continued for about 3 hours until I got the first 100 kilometers of the day down. Arriving in Molette, I unfortunately had to take another break because after filling up my water bottles, I realized there was blood dropping down into the faucet, which was obviously my nose again, so another 10 minutes gone, just sitting on the side of the road waiting for the bleeding to stop.
I'm at roughly 100 kilometers at the moment and my nose doesn't stop bleeding, so I'll have to take another break.
Nevertheless, I was able to make good progress during the next few hours, and then I asked a random couple if they could maybe give me some water because my water bottles were empty, and they were so kind to give me not only cool water but also 2 apples and some candy fruits for energy, because it turned out the man was also a cyclist, so he exactly knew what I was feeling without any snacks and water, and yeah, they were just great. And I have to say, in total, all the people I met on my trip were really nice and really kind to me. They always gave me more than I asked them for, although they didn't even have to give me anything, obviously. So I'm really happy with all the people I met. Then after about 190 kilometers, I arrived in L'Aigle, which was probably the last bigger city for the day, and I decided to continue on and eat dinner in the next city and then build up my tent in a forest that was probably following, at least according to my navigation system. But then I arrived in the smaller city after Lägle and it was completely deserted. So luckily I met two guys who were just coming from a fishing session, I guess, because they had their fishing rods still with them, and I asked them if they knew any places to eat, and they told me to go back to Lägle. That meant I had to ride half an hour back for 10 kilometers, and fortunately I was able to find some place to eat there, which was my dinner for the day.
I'm now at 200 kilometers and I slightly miscalculated the place to eat. That's why I had to detour for 10 kilometers again. But now I'm eating quite a lot, one burger and pasta arrabbiata. And then I'm looking for a place to sleep because tomorrow there's only 150 kilometers to go. And I think that's quite possible to do.
Since I didn't want to push my luck any further, I decided to not cycle until the forest because I didn't know if I could sleep there anyway, and decided to build up my camp in a small field next to the road, which was again not in plain sight because I wouldn't really feel safe there if anyone could see me who was just driving down the road. And yeah, I built my camp up there, had my third nosebleed of the day unfortunately, but then I slept like a baby again. On day 5 I woke up feeling really relaxed and the weather started to turn because for the first 4 days it was heat non-stop. On a few days there wasn't even any clouds on the sky, so I sometimes felt like cycling through the desert and the sweat was really running down my face, not only dripping, and that was really exhausting. So the clouds in the morning were a welcome change of weather. Also, I noticed that it was Sunday, so probably all the supermarkets would be closed, which is why I decided to take every possibility I can to get something to eat and stop there every time because I didn't want to risk cycling for 80 to 90 kilometers without the possibility of any snacks. So that is also what I did. Obviously my start wouldn't be a proper start without my first nosebleed of the day while breaking my camp, but I felt quite good, so I just decided to wait until that's gone and started, still really motivated, into the 5th day. My first break was probably like 1.5 hours later because I saw the first bakery there and my plan was to stop for every possibility. My plan was to use every possibility I can to get something to eat. So I had a few baked goods there and continued on driving until after 2 to 3 hours a slight rain started, which was really refreshing. After probably like 4 to 5 hours of cycling, I arrived in a conservational forest, which was definitely one of the best parts of the tour because the air just felt so fresh and clean, and I even risked to start breathing through the nose again, which was something I completely tried to avoid for the last 4 days because I always was scared that my nose would start bleeding again if I would breathe through the nose too much. And then I arrived in a really beautiful small city where I asked some old man a question he probably never heard before, and that was the question, do you know the name of the city I'm currently in? And fortunately he told me so I can remember the point. It was Bagnols de l'Orne and it was a really nice city located in the middle of the conservational forests, and that was a really nice stop for water again. Until I arrived in Domfront-en-Pourrais, and after talking to a woman I met there, she was telling me that I didn't look properly prepared for the Normandy because the rain started to increase, and she told me that the Normandy is known for its bad weather. And that was when I started to think about my sleeping situation because my tent was waterproof since the top of it was only like a mosquito cover and not something proper to keep me dry during the rain. But after continuing on for a few kilometers, I decided to just ask for a room at the campground I'm staying there because all the campgrounds I've been so far always have like small little trailers, and then I would have just slept in a bed again, which wouldn't be too bad anyway, and I would have a dry place to stay for the night. I arrived at the campground, decided to ask for a room, but unfortunately the lady behind the reception was like, a room? We're completely booked out. And that was when I realized I might have a small problem. Since I didn't want to sleep in the rain because then I would probably get sick and all my stuff would be really wet, I asked the woman for the next hotel and she told me it was 20 kilometers into the direction I would have driven tomorrow, so I decided to go for it. But before I started, I went to the toilet there, and I'm gonna spare you the details, but I thought that I had some internal bleedings, and that was when I started to get really scared. For the next 20 kilometers I was cycling with a bleeding nose and basically at the edge of a panic attack, so I probably managed to do it in 40 minutes, which was quite fast, but I was, basically panicking the whole time. But I finally arrived in Ducey. There I also found the hotel the lady was talking about, but I didn't even have to ask for a room because a sign outside told me that they were completely booked out as well, as was the next hotel I was passing through. So I really started to panic because the rain increased, all the hotels were booked out, I had no place to stay, and I couldn't even sleep in the wild because I had no proper protection from the rain. By chance I found a campground nearby, but unfortunately the reception was closed, so I was just down on my luck and didn't have any idea what I should do. since my phone was able to turn on for like 10 to 20 seconds before it shut down again, I decided to use the time and call my parents and just tell them about my situation so maybe they could figure out something as well. But I was just sitting there crying and not knowing what was gonna happen. Luckily, while I was waiting for a response of my parents, I talked to a guy who was staying at the campground, and he told me the reception always is closed until 6 p.m. and you can just pick a spot to build up your camp and later tell that place to the lady at the reception so she can book you in for that place.
I'm now 20 kilometers away from Mont Saint-Michel. It was the hardest part today. The last kilometers were terrible, and yeah, but I'm gonna finish it tomorrow. Now I'm at Ducey, that's 20 kilometers away from Mont Saint-Michel, and I'm building up my camp here. I hope it stays dry, that's why I'm under a tree. You can see it behind me, and tomorrow I hope to finish the tour.
After building up my camp, I took a shower, which felt amazing, and went into the city for dinner before the reception would be opening again. After eating my delicious dinner, I went back to the campground, checked in, and just to tell you how lucky I was, the hotel rooms would have been at least 80 euros per night, and I was staying at this campground for 6 euros per night, so I saved a lot of money and even found a place to stay really close to my next goal in the morning, Mont Saint-Michel. But before I could go there, I still had to figure out how to stay dry during the night. So in my broken French, I asked the people next to me if they maybe have like a plastic sheet or something else to cover my tent to protect me from the rain during the night. And they were again incredibly kind, giving me a ginormous sheet of plastic to cover not only my tent but also my bike. And yeah, here you can see my construction for my sleeping situation. With the tarp over my tent and my bike, I was so tired that I didn't even blow up my air mattress, but just decided to sleep on the ground because it was the last night anyway, and I wanted to have the least trouble possible in the morning to break down my camp again, so no air mattress, just sleeping on the ground with my bag of clothes as a pillow like in the last 4 nights. And yeah, I have to say I still slept quite good. Not as good as the nights before, but still at least a little bit relaxing. And just for you keeping track, on the 5th day I was cycling for 162 kilometers in total, so way more than the rest they would have given me, and that meant I had only about 200 and something kilometers left on the last day, which was something I knew I would be able to do. At 6 a.m. my alarm went off again, and I broke down my camp, and at 7 a.m. in the morning I was on my bike again. The weather was like yesterday, quite rainy and also in the morning really foggy, so I didn't see too much. That's also why I only realized I was arriving at the Mont Saint-Michel about 4 kilometers before I was really there, since before that I wasn't even able to see the sea at all, although I was cycling quite close next to it for a few kilometers already. And like that, after an hour of cycling, I arrived at the Mont Saint-Michel and was able to experience it without any tourists at all, since all of the shops would only open at 9 a.m. in the morning, so there was no reason for all of the tourists to go there already, and that meant my experience of the place was really cool. Then after paying way too much money for my breakfast, because I was still close to the Mont Saint-Michel, I decided that I wanted to just ride on for as far as possible, or at least until I have half the distance done, before I was checking the remaining distance on my navigational system again. And that's what I did. I basically rode my bike for 4 to 5 hours non-stop until I finally crossed the 100 kilometers left mark. What I didn't realize while cycling was that it was a national holiday in France, so again all the shops were closed, which started to make things a little bit difficult, because the area I was cycling through wasn't that populated, so not only haven't there been too many cities, but also obviously in those small cities the supermarkets weren't open, which meant food was starting to get a problem. But finally I found some people in the middle of nowhere who were having a family party and asked them for water and maybe something sweet to re-energize myself, and after waiting shortly he came back with 2 cool bottles of water, 1 apple and 2 peaches, which was such a delicious snack and gave me back a lot of energy for the remaining 90 kilometers. After about 80 kilometers left, I started to see some signs pointing out a crepe place nearby, and since the signs were spread out so far and I had to cycle for another 4 to 5 kilometers until I finally arrived at the place, I thought that this was probably a really good restaurant and another great decision to take a break, which was what I did again, and also one of the best decisions I made so far. Because in there I was talking to the guy making the crepes and ordered 2 crepes for myself. Also after paying I talked to the guy and he wanted to know what I was doing and what my plans were with the bike, and so I told them I was coming from Munich and my plan was to go to the Atlantic, and his question was, so you've been riding the bus so far? And I answered, no, all the distance was covered by bike so far, which I think they didn't believe at first, but after seeing my state and the set of my bike, They agreed that that was a great feat so far and wished me good luck on the rest of my trip. Only 75 kilometers left and I started cycling again, with the decision to not take another break since I had a few snacks left and just wanted to get it done. During the last few kilometers I also passed a few cities where the Tour de France was passing by a few weeks earlier, which was a funny feeling, and then after 4 to 5 hours I finally arrived in Ploemeur, the city where my family and me were staying at. But since I didn't know exactly where our holiday house was located, I stopped at a church and was thinking already that alright, that's it. I will call my parents, tell them to pick me up and take me to our holiday house. But after powering on my phone, I received a text message of my dad telling me the location and that it was so beautiful. So I had to cycle there myself. But that was also a great decision because that way I was able to finish at the Atlantic. And here you can see me meeting my family again after 6 days of cycling and 1,424 kilometers covered, all by bike. Just like that, my tour ended. I'm really happy I was able to complete it, and especially happy and thankful that there weren't any technical complications at all. So my bike was functioning properly all the time, and all in all, the tour was a really great success. I also hope that you enjoyed this video and my retelling of the story, since unfortunately I don't have that much footage. But if you still enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like or follow my channel. There are already some great projects planned again, and yeah, thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed it and see you guys in the next video.